Good morning, everybody. I didn't even have to say, be quiet, please, this morning, so you're all very attentive, and I hope that's the way it all remains for the next 2 days. No chance from the front row. Well, good morning and welcome to the 2014 International Sail Training and Tall Ships Conference here in the lovely sunny city of La Coruña. Sorry, just changed that note. A bit of housekeeping before we get going with the programme proper. First of all, there are no fire alarms scheduled throughout the conference in this building, so should the alarms go off, it is for real. So please leave the building by the nearest exit and congregate at the front of the building. Please do not wander off until we have your name and your credit card, please. Coffee breaks will be in the exhibition area and registration area, which is where you came into the building. But the lunches will be on the ground floor at the other end of the building from the exhibition registration area. Access to the conference rooms throughout the 2 days. The second floor rooms, you can access those from the ground floor from either staircase or lift in the building. But for the third floor meeting rooms, you need to go to the staircase or lift that is on the left of the side. As I look at it, that's on the right for all the sail trainers who are looking this way. Okay. Tomorrow evening is drinks reception and gala dinner, generously sponsored by the City of Quebec, and that is here in the Palexico on this floor again. During the conference sessions, please do turn all your phones off or put them to silent to give the speakers the best chance of being appreciated for all the hard work they've put into their presentations. One small change to what is in the programme: the session on satellite navigation, which is shown as being filmed, will not now be filmed, and that is in session 1 and in session 5. So it is repeated, so there's lots of opportunity to see it, but it will not be filmed and therefore available on our website afterwards. All other sessions that are shown as being filmed, those videos will be available on our website in the coming days after the conference. And finally, at the end of the conference, could I please ask you to fill in your evaluation form, either online or in a paper copy, and leave it with us or send it back to us. They are in your bags. We do take notice of your comments. Sorry, no, I should read. We do take notice of the good comments. The bad ones, maybe. Anyway, welcome to La Coruña. Enjoy the next 2 days. All the STI team are here to help you and assist in any way. So if you need anything, please do go to the registration help desk, and the team there will be only too pleased to help sort you out. So welcome and thank you. Now over to Mr. Doug Prothero, Chairman of Sail Training International.
Good morning. I want to welcome you to La Coruña, and a special thanks to the city for hosting us. We were last here in 2005, and we'll be back here. We were last here for a conference in 2005, and we'll be back here for an event in 2016. Also want to make a special thanks to the joint host ports for next summer, who generously hosted us last night at the aquarium, and for those of you who were able to make it, it was a fantastic venue. In advance of the conference, I started to make a list of the number of projects that are underway at the moment at Sail Training International, and I stopped at the count of 50. I'm just going to give you a few of the highlights. I'm not going to name the 50 I came up with. We formed a marketing working group within STI and outside partners from ships and other representatives to start to develop new tools for improving the business model of ships, both at sea and during port events. This last year saw the formation of the STI Ships Council, which emerged or developed out of the Class A Tall Ships Forum to include a new Small Ships Forum, and the two of them work together on projects of similar interest and separately on those that are specific to each vessel group size. We completed the important phase 1 of a joint venture with the Nautical Institute on an international sail endorsement scheme, which you're going to hear about in a few moments. The support through the events on the bursary and corporate hospitality side grew considerably this year, and we see that trend continuing over the next 3 years. Perhaps as importantly, in the world of sail training, a number of new sail training organizations around the world emerging, one in China, in Panama, in collaboration with Colombia, it would appear, in Turkey, in Brazil, and in Switzerland. And we've also seen recently the rebirth of the Sail Training Association in Japan. We're working on the development of a sail training education center to help educate the millions of visitors that we see each year during our port events. For those of you who were here last year, you'll know that Nigel Rowe and a number of others were working on the development of a new book on sail training, and that launched this summer. And Tall Ships Today, there's a little insert in your conference pack. If you don't have one, please get one, and it's a great Christmas gift, and a portion of the proceeds go to a bursary fund. So, and for the National Sail Training Associations, we encourage you to help with the sale of the book, because that also can directly benefit your organization. We're working on developing the first ever professional development workshop for military training ships to be held in Latin America in the end of the first quarter of 2015. In September, you'll recall last year at the conference we said that we would undertake a strategic planning process to look forward at how we might change some of the things that we do or evolve some of the things that we do. We hosted a think tank on that in Greenwich. We had another related session yesterday, and we have another one today. And we're in the process of developing real and measurable improvements to what we do for all of our stakeholders. So you'll hear more about some of those things and others throughout the conference. I just wanted to, while we're on the subject of the conference, 2015 is going to be a little bit of a different year for us. So there's a few things that I thought I'd put in your minds now about that, and we'll remind you a few times over the course of this conference. So during 2015, we will host our typical spring meeting for the International Council member, the Ships Council, and the Youth Council. It'll be a slightly extended meeting, and we'll host that again in Southampton. And then during the summer, we intend to hold a host port workshop during one of our Tall Ship Races Europe events. So that'll be held at the back end of our Aalborg event in August. And many of you will recall in 2008, in advance of the 2009 Tall Ships Atlantic Challenge, we held a joint conference with Tall Ships America in Halifax. Well, we're going to do that again. This time it'll be in Quebec City. It's also going to be a little bit later. So instead of our normal November slot, we're going to be hosting that conference in January. There won't be as many palm trees in Quebec City as you see here in La Coronia. It's a winter destination. It's a fantastic city, and you'll also learn and hear more about that, as I said, over the next couple of days. While on the subject of Quebec, we are also working on our next transatlantic event, and all those ports that are related to that are here. The event is called, Rendezvous 2017, and this is really a message for the ships at this point. We have quite a well-funded bursary and corporate hospitality program, and so we encourage ships that might be interested in that voyage to sign up at the Quebec booth, because the funding for that program will be committed on a first-come, first-served basis. So back to our conference here. I hope that you're challenged and inspired by the content of what you take part in the next couple of days. I'm looking forward to catching up with many of you, and I hope that you enjoy the conference. Our first speaker, our next speaker on this part of the opening plenary, is Stephen Gosling from the Nautical Institute. Stephen, I can tell you, during our conference in Toulon, France in 2011, we hosted a special session at the front end of the conference where we invited various flag states that had an interest in sail training to come and to communicate with us about their concerns and interests in sail training and for them to learn more about sail training. And we identified a number of projects that we would work on, and one of them was to develop an international sail endorsement scheme so that flag states who were interested and didn't already have a sail endorsement might adopt what we developed. What we found in the process of starting that work is that the Nautical Institute was also in the process of redeveloping their square rig endorsement, and so we decided to work on that together, put together an international team, and Stephen's going to share with you a little bit more of the details on that. So, Stephen, thank you and enjoy the conference.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to return to the STI conference here this year to update you on a joint project that we introduced this time last year at the conference in Aalborg. The International Sail Endorsement Scheme is the result of the combined efforts of the Nautical Institutes and Sail Training International, and it's with great pleasure that we return this year to launch the scheme with one aim in mind. That aim is to establish, promote and recognise a high standard of knowledge, understanding and proficiency amongst those who sail tall ships. This was the goal that NI and STI shared when talks of a new scheme were first held 2 years ago at the conference in Latvia, and this is the goal that we're delivering on today as the milestone of producing and publishing a new scheme for the tall ship community is reached. The scheme is the initiative of 2 not-for-profit maritime organisations and marks the creation of an international proficiency standard against which square rig and fore and aft sailors can be independently assessed and endorsed. The scheme is the output of a global group of tall ship experts, many of whom serving masters, who understand the unique challenges of managing and operating these vessels safely and efficiently. So this truly is a scheme devised by the tall ship sailor for the tall ship sailor. And as we seek to reach out to as many of you in the industry as possible to support, follow and feed back on the scheme, you can be confident that it will reflect the practices, techniques and traditions that have shaped the science and art of tall ship sailing. So why an international scheme? Well, NI and STI have long recognised that people who sail tall ships require specialist skills and knowledge to do their job and do it well. In fact, this was the reason NI established a square rig scheme more than 20 years ago. What has always been missing, however, is an international framework setting out what it is the sailor should know and be able to do to become proficient in both square rig and fore and aft vessel operations. By building upon and replacing the old NI square rig scheme with this one, those with different rig experience will not only be able to see for themselves what the industry deem they should be capable of, but it will also enable them to meet a recognised industry standard and be awarded an international sail endorsement. Meanwhile, for owners, operators and flag states, this scheme provides a fantastic opportunity to raise the professional bar in this specialist sector by recognising high standards self-prescribed by the industry. If all the work that our 2 organisations have funded over the past 2 years to get us here today improves the safe and efficient operations of tall ships internationally and perhaps prevents just one accident from occurring, then we believe that the joint effort of putting this scheme together will have been worth it. I'd like to finish just by saying that this is an industry scheme, and you, ladies and gentlemen, are part of that industry. It is therefore our aim to grow this scheme with your input, your suggestions and your feedback. So do connect with us during the conference, in between conferences and at the next conference, where we'll be able to update you on how the scheme has developed and how the scheme is benefiting those who are pursuing the endorsement. Thank you all for listening, and do see us in the foyer for further information. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies, gentlemen, captains, friends. It's my absolute pleasure to report on 3 successful tall ships races and regattas that we've run in this year. It all started in the Black Sea for an event that was sponsored by Sovcomflot. The first port of the event was in Varna, home of Kaliakra and the home Bulgarian tall ship Kaliakra. After a 500-mile challenging race across to Novorossiysk in Russia, they were warmly received and met by hundreds of thousands of crowds in that Russian port. It was a short hop up to Sochi, home of the Winter Olympics, and again the crowds came out, and a very successful event, I understand, in Sochi. The final race leg across to Constanta, another 500 miles across the Black Sea with some pretty challenging weather and extremely close racing. The fleet were very much welcomed in Constanta, home of the Mircea, the Romanian tall ship based there. After that, the fleet, in fact 3 of the ships came up to Harlingen to start the tall ships races 2014. Harlingen, home of the Brown charter fleet in Holland, and very much at ease at looking after tall ships and their crews, a very picturesque place. And that was the first time Harlingen hosted the event, and it went exceptionally well. Very much enjoyed. Also a thanks to the Netherlands Royal Navy for the support they lent for a logistically challenging race start some 70 miles north of Harlingen, clear of the traffic separation zones. And again, the race started, it started well with a light wind, but the wind gods conspired against the fleet again, and the winds came around on the nose and created quite a challenging race for the ships. But that said, they arrived in Fredrikstad. It was Fredrikstad's second time for hosting the event, and again, fantastically well received. The crews had a great time there. A particularly challenging port with such a narrow river for the berthing, and particularly the parade of sail. And really, I have to highlight the professionalism of their harbour master and port authority for dealing all of that very challenging, one of the most challenging rivers to do a parade of sail with no incident and very calmly. There was a cruising company along the beautiful Bergen, the Norwegian archipelago to Bergen. And again, thanks to the team in Fredrikstad and also Bergen, as well as the Norwegian Sail Training Association, for putting on such a great cruising company. The ships were blessed with Mediterranean weather. It was really warm, and that weather continued for the stay in Bergen. Now, if God had designed a tall ship's port, nestled, a small compact port with a beautiful historic city around it, with lovely mountains surrounding it, he would have designed Bergen. They've hosted the races many times, and there's no wonder that the crews and the captains had a fantastic time there again. The race to Esbjerg went well after a challenging start, and thanks again to the Norwegian Coast Guard for their support with not just the race start, but supplying the communications vessel down to Esbjerg. Very much appreciated. Esbjerg, again, they had hosted a race twice before, laid on a fantastic program for the crews and the captains, very crew and trainee focused, and there's no doubt they had a terrific time in Esbjerg. From there, and we had a few vessels going from Esbjerg to Falmouth to take part in the Falmouth to Royal Greenwich Tall Ships Regatta. And in fact, special mention to Attila from Spain for the only vessel having done all 3 of those events. Fantastic achievement. The beautiful, picturesque Cornish port of Falmouth has hosted the race a couple of times before and did a fantastic job. Very friendly, very picturesque. And the ship set off on a great race via the Isle of Wight up to Greenwich. what a fantastic venue to hold a tall ships race in the heart of London and on the Thames. And there were some fantastic sights there, and the crews certainly enjoyed being in the capital of the UK. And the Parade of Sail really was ended that event on an absolute high note. And Greenwich are very much looking forward to welcoming the fleet back in 2017. So a great year for the sailors, the captains and the trainees, but I think also a great year from a commercial side. And I'll now hand over to Paul Thompson to do the commercial overview.
Good morning, everybody. We'll just take a very, very brief look at some of the commercial highlights from 2014. Visitor numbers again this year were excellent. In the Black Sea, we had nearly 1.5 million visitors. The Summer Tall Ships Race is over 1.5 million visitors. And Falmouth Royal Greenwich, again, nearly 1.5 million visitors. So over 4 million visitors to our events, which is fantastic. Something that we're all very much aware of, and conversations that we've had with a number of people recently, is how we can do more to convert these huge audience figures into trainee uptake and berth filling. It's a big focus for us, and it's really a shared responsibility between the ships, the ports, Sail Training International, the NSTOs. We have to look at how we can take this level of interest and turn it into more young people going sailing and more berths being filled on the ships. We have to create more awareness in the ports during the events of the opportunity to sail. We have to provide better access to information on those opportunities, and we have to find a way of converting any interest we generate into trainee berth uptake. This is a big focus for us for next year. It's come through the STI think tank process. It's a big focus for the marketing working group, and it's a big focus for the Youth Council for next year. And I think as a theme, you'll be hearing a number of elements of that discussed during the course of the conference. On the media side, we had over 1,000 items of international coverage, broadcast, print, online. Very difficult to measure the value of that because everybody does it in a different way, but perhaps over 20 million euros worth of media coverage. And again, huge growth in the social media side of things, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of those social media aspects very much in the ascendancy. On the fleet revenue side for the tall ships races, the summer races, we saw a very significant increase in the revenue that was attributed to the fleet through deck events and host port trainees. On the host port trainee side, we had 677 young people provided by the host ports, and a huge thank you particularly to the Port of Harlingen, who provided pretty much half of that number through a very innovative trainee recruitment scheme that they've put together. And there is a session on that during the conference, a repeated session. So for any host port people looking at trainee recruitment ideas, I would recommend you go along to that. On the deck event side, we saw a very significant increase from the previous year, up to 130 deck events. This was partly due to a change in the host port contract situation that we have, where the ports now make a commitment to provide a set number of deck events, and partly due to the extra effort that those ports put in, so we very much thank them for that. So nearly €1 million worth of revenue, which is approximately 80% up on the year before. So a huge increase, but we still have more to achieve. There were still ships with empty berths, and there were still ships that had deck event spaces, so we have more to do. It's really a shared responsibility between the ports, the ships, STI and the NSTOs. We have to look at new markets, we have to develop new products, we have to be better at our sales and marketing, and we have to be better at working as a group. The relationships between ships and ports and STI have to be better if we're to achieve more. And again, there's a conference session on this on Saturday morning, which I'd recommend you go along to if that's of interest to you. On the sponsorship side, we had a very successful partnership with the Russian shipping company Sovcomflot. They're in talks with us now to do something with us again, which is quite exciting. But the search for a main sponsor, an overall event sponsor for the tall ships races continues to be difficult. Again, we have a number of conversations ongoing, but getting someone to sign is proving very difficult for lots of different reasons. The geographic spread of the events, going to different markets year after year particularly. So one of the things we are considering is how we can work with ports on a different sponsorship model with a different rights allocation model, and we'll be talking with you over the course of the conference, perhaps over coffee with the relevant people from the host ports. That is a very, very brief whistle-stop tour on the commercial side, and I'll now hand back to Paul.
Thank you, Paul. And the money is absolutely, the commercial side is absolutely important, but we shouldn't forget actually what it's all about. And here are just a few quotes we've received back from the trainees. Absolutely life-changing experiences, all about teamwork, how much they're valuing just the sheer experience of sail training, and particularly the tall ships races. Life-changing experience, fantastic. So in summary, 130 vessels, 21 nations, lots of different classes, good number of Class A tall ships races, tall ships, nearly 5 kilometres of ships if you put them end to end. It's pretty impressive. Individually, the fleet sailed, we reckon, about almost 400,000 nautical miles between them, and that's without going between the events as well. Good number of crew, almost 9,000 to 10,000 crew there from 40 different nationalities. And we reckon that equates to some over 120,000 individual trainee nights on board during the event. So the event is having a huge impact on developing young people. For the review, I'd just like to invite the 2014 host port teams to stand up. So Harlingen, JR and Core, if you're here in the Harlingen team, could you please just stand up? And Fredrikstad, Bjorg and team. Okay. Håkon and the Bergen team. The Esbjerg team. The Black Sea team. And Falmouth and Royal Greenwich. Thank you very much indeed. Great job, guys, and we all enjoyed very much working so closely with you. Now, just looking ahead, a very quick overview of what we've got ahead. You can talk to us in more details about particular events. Starting off with the Baltic Tall Ships Regatta from Klaipeda to Stettin in June. Then going from Belfast to Ollison to Kristiansand to Aalborg. And then not forgetting our 2 endorsed events, Sail Bremerhaven and Sail Amsterdam, and we have representatives here at the conference. Mediterranean in 2016, the anchor port of Toulon in France, and we're negotiating at the moment, and we hope to announce 2 other ports very soon for that event in 16. And of course, there's the Delft Sail for 16, another endorsed event, and we've got representatives here. That ties in quite nicely with the date, so ships can go from Delft Sail to Antwerp, the start port of the Tall Ships Tall Ships Races 2016, going to Lisbon, Cadiz, and here in La Coruña. And then also we're very excited to announce Blythe as a regatta port, and we hope to announce very soon a Finnish port across the North Sea for 2016. Of course, the Rendezvous 2017 Tall Ships Regatta Quebec, which Doug mentioned earlier. Fantastic event. And then happening in Europe as that's going on, we've got Den Helder, Sail Den Helder, an endorsed port for 17. That feeds into Halmstad, the start of the Baltic Tall Ships Race, for those vessels that cannot come across across the Atlantic, going up to Kotka, Turku, Klaipeda, and Stettin. Representatives all here. Looking ahead to 2018, very exciting regatta coming from southwest United Kingdom, British Isles, across to Bordeaux to coincide with their wine festival. Very popular one. Got my name down for race director for that one. And then we've just announced 5 host ports for 2018. The dates will be finalised early in the new year, but at Cherbourg, Esbjerg, Stavanger, Sunderland and Harlingen. And again, representatives all here at this conference from those ports. Very excited to announce that. And then looking further ahead, just to round it off, we've just opened up the bid process for 2019, and we've got expressions from interest already from a good few ports, familiar ports. The deadline for 2019 is the 1st of November, and then that's the sea area. So, and just really ending up on the sea area planning overview, just to give you an idea of what we're working with at the moment. It's not cast in stone, but this is our strategy to cover parts of Europe with races and regattas. So, team, I think we've got quite a busy few years ahead of us. And it's not just about Europe, of course. Exciting discussions about maybe a China Seas Tall Ships Regatta, maybe taking Vladivostok. The Cook 50th anniversary, something will happen there. There's huge interest out in New Zealand and Australia, with hopefully feed-in from the Pacific and the Atlantic. Just follow Europa, she knows her way, okay? And that's 250 Cook celebrations, feeding into 500 years of Magellan. So we've got the globe covered, a busy few years ahead of us, and look forward. I'd just like to thank you all. Without the host ports, without the ships, and without the national sail training organisations, this would be impossible. Thank you again for all your help in 2014, and we look forward to working ahead for these very exciting plans over the next 5 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul, for that. And actually, Paul left one slide off at the end, which is there's recently a landing on a comet that you may have read about in the news. That was also down to STI, but we're just keeping that one a little bit quiet, okay? It now gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker at the conference, Mr. Crane Wood-Stuckey. Crane has sailed for many years on sail training vessels prior to founding the adventure voyaging program at the Nova Scotia Sea School. For his work there, he was awarded the Queen's Golden Jubilee Medal excuse me, for his contribution to Canadian society. Crane has taught mindfulness and meditation for more than 25 years, mixing these experiences of sail training into the business world. Since 2006, he has used his crew building and mental performance skills to help businesses and organisational leaders achieve better performance and deeper commitment for their people, something I'm sure rings true with many in the audience here today. Crane holds a master's degree from Harvard University and is also linked with other North American educational establishments. He's also an author, and his book, Keep Your People in the Boat, Workforce Engagement Lessons from the Sea, was published in 2012. That's what it looks like. If you're interested in that, I'm sure you will be after hearing him speak. Copies are available from the registration desk. So, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Crane Wood-Stuckey. Crane.
Before we talk about leadership, let's talk about packaging. Let's talk about product packaging. How do we package the leadership product? How do we package the confidence product, the teamwork product, the self-discovery product? How do we package the sail training product all together? Now, maybe some people aren't really enjoying the idea of product packaging. Maybe you'd rather talk about educational technique or program design or meeting your program objectives or something like that. But I actually like the idea of thinking about packaging because it implies that we can be very skillful and thoughtful and creative about putting together every detail of the sail training situation that we offer. But then it's up to each trainee to open that package themselves in their own way and have their own experience of it. We're not talking about spoon-feeding people or over-facilitating or anything like that. But the power of how we craft the details of the package can have a big effect on the experience that the people can draw from it. Now, usually when we think about packaging the sail training experience, we don't get much farther than thinking about the ships. Taking people to sea on ships or letting people visit ships in the port, in the host ports. Well, it's sail training after all. So, of course, the ships are really the only package we need, right? Well, maybe. But the truth is that the ship is the only package we need point of view does come with its own difficulties. For one thing, everybody I've spoken to has, either in the ships or in the ports, is stressed about money. Sail training is hard to sell. It's not like soccer. Now, we're just hearing about a lot of initiatives to work on this situation, which is wonderful, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of improvements. But still, it's a difficult challenge. And also that the general public doesn't really understand what sail training is all about. You know, they think it's for the Navy, which is true. Or it's to help people join the Merchant Marine, which is true. Or it's an adventure for rich kids, which is true. Or it's a boot camp for delinquents, which is true. Or it's some kind of high school program, which is true. So what is it? It's very hard for the public to get their minds around how it could be for them, what it could do for them. And going to sea is a big commitment. It's very expensive, and times are hard. Plus, this idea that the ship is the only package we need, that really only offers us two ways to do it. One is send people to sea on ships, and the other is host the port events. And both of those packages are really big, hundreds of thousands of euros to operate a ship or to host an event, truckloads of gear and equipment, vast logistical support. These are really big, really demanding, really hard to manage packages. So what else can we do? Are there other things that we can do that are not just dependent on the ships? What can we do for people who will never go to sea? If we want to make a bigger mark in the world, this is something that we can begin to think about in addition to all the powerful work that happens on the ships. But actually, it's our narrow focus on the ships are the only package we need that is holding us back from making a bigger mark in the world. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we should do anything instead of the ships. The ships are the most powerful teachers in the world, and I firmly believe that sail training ships have the power to change the world, one trainee at a time. But at the same time, this focus on the ships is actually limiting how much changing the world we can do. We can think bigger than the ships. If we want to think about the vision of what Sail Training International can accomplish in the world, we can think bigger than the ships. So, what might this look like? Well, I have a possibility to suggest. A possibility that can reach more people than the relatively small number that will actually go to sea, that can provide more training than is able to happen in a port visit, that can build a public awareness and appreciation of the sail training brand, and bonus, that can help develop an additional and very cost-effective revenue stream. So I package the sail training experience for corporate leaders and government leaders, not-for-profit leaders who will never go to sea. And I do this by drawing on my own experience of being at sea, drawing the lessons from the sea, using the stories, the images, the metaphors of the sea, and bringing some kind of powerful story or experiential activity to bring it to life, something that reflects the experience of the sea. So this kind of thing doesn't have the power of going to sea, of course, but it has a power and a benefit of its own. And it pays well and requires very little overhead. So I'm going to give you a small example of what this might be like. But of course, when we don't have the power of the ship to be the great teacher for us, to do the work for us, we have to do more of the work ourselves, which means we have to be much more conscious of exactly what kind of experience we want to offer and exactly what kind of package is needed to convey that experience. We have to do a lot more work ourselves. We can't rely on the ship. So the package that I have come up with for this kind of thing has three elements. First, there's a principle drawn from the sail training experience. And that principle can't be confidence and teamwork and all of that, those overused words. It needs to be something more memorable and unique, and it needs to have an immediate application for those corporate leaders in the work they do every day. The second element of the package is that there are some provocative rules or instructions for applying that principle to the issues that the leaders face every day. And the third part of the package is that there is a story, or better yet, some kind of experiential activity that brings that principle and its application to life. And of course, you start with the story, because that's the hook. For the moment, though, we have to change hats here a little bit, because now we're not going to be people in the industry talking about our work. I'm going to ask you to be an audience of corporate, not-for-profit, government leaders, which, of course, many of you are. So it's not going to be that hard. But I'm going to ask you to be a somewhat naive audience of landsmen who don't know much about sailing, who've come for a half day of professional development training to hear the guy from the tall ships talk about leadership lessons from the sea. So please listen to this from that somewhat naive point of view. This is the story of Stephanie, a trainee on the Corwith Kramer. Is it there? Yes. The Corwith Kramer operates out of the US. It's a sailing research vessel that takes university students, science students, to sea for a semester of oceanography and seamanship training as part of their regular undergraduate work. So Stephanie was on a 2-month voyage around the Northern Caribbean. And there are 18 trainees on this ship, divided into 3 watches of 6 people each. So on any given watch, there are 6 people, and 3 of those are in the science lab with the scientists doing their research projects. The other 3 trainees are on deck with the mate of the watch handling the ship. Now, if we need to do more, here we are, the watch. If we need to do more, then, if we need to do more, we need more hands to handle the sails or tack the ship or something, we can call those 3 trainees out of the science lab for a little bit. But they have their own science work to do. So most of the time, this 41-meter, 280-ton Class A ship is operated by 3 university trainees and 1 professional. The learning curve for these trainees is steep. Now, toward the end of the voyage, they get good enough that they can start to be junior officers of the watch themselves. And when it was Stephanie's turn, we were off of the city of Miami in Florida, taking water samples to see how much plastic there was in the water column at different depths off such a big city. It was night. There was a lot of traffic in the area. And so the captain, Deborah Hayes, drew a square on the chart in safe water and told Stephanie to keep the ship inside that square. And then she went to bed. Now, to stay inside the square, we were going to have to do a fair bit of maneuvering. And you might have expected Stephanie, wanting to rise to the occasion of being the ship's officer and wanting to show off her leadership skills, to have been very meticulous and careful with us all about exactly who was going to do what and what the timing was going to be, and reviewing the entire maneuver and coaching us all. And that's, in fact, what a number of the trainees who had been officer of the watch before her had done. That's what you think leadership is. But when it came time to tack the ship, Stephanie called the 3 other trainees out of the lab and gathered us all on deck and said simply, with an excited smile on her face, "We're going to tack. Places, everyone." Now, this took the crew really by surprise. We were all expecting a lot more instruction, a lot more leadership than that. But the delight of that trainee crew was immediately obvious, because everybody suddenly realized that they, a handful of university science students, knew how to tack this massive ship and could be trusted completely to do it. And everyone went off in little spontaneous teams to handle the different sails, ready to go, with Stephanie's excited smile shining on their faces, too. And we maneuvered our ship within that square beautifully and tirelessly through the night. So this is the epitome of the success of sail training. Not because Stephanie learned to tack the ship, but because she learned how to command. And not just to command our actions, not just to get us to do stuff. She learned how to command our attitude, how to command the best in her crew. And one of the things I learned from Stephanie, and that I've learned over and over at sea, is that when it comes to the kind of leadership that really brings out the best in people, which is, after all, the goal of sail training, when it comes to that kind of leadership, less is more. So that's the principle here. When it comes to the leadership style that brings out the best in people, less is more. This is what one of the ex-captains of the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Eagle called leadership by exception. And he said that officers, I'm going the wrong way. Come on. officers give commands only when a problem arises. That leadership by exception is typical of a warship in a high-threat environment where the extra seconds used in passing commands down the chain may be fatal. So this principle of less is more leadership has 3 practical rules to help us apply it. There's 3 simple rules for less is more leadership, and the 3 simple rules are these. The first rule is give what's needed. And the second rule is don't give what's not needed. And the third rule is know the difference. Give what's needed, don't give what's not needed, and know the difference. Now, knowing the difference, of course, is the hard part. But knowing the difference is what distinguishes good leaders from poor leaders. And learning to know the difference is the essence of leadership training. So Stephanie knew the difference. She knew that to bring out the best in her crew, they didn't need a lot of instructions from her, so she didn't give any. She knew that what the crew needed to step up and bring their personal best to the effort was appreciation of their competence, joy in their work, a genuinely shared sense of responsibility together. So that's what she gave. And to give those things, she had to give so little. Places, everyone. When it comes to leadership, less is more. So now, you don't have to be the naive corporate audience anymore. This was a small example of the kind of, perhaps you could call it shipless sail training that I do. But the principle here of less is more leadership and those 3 simple rules, those are actually a real eye-opener for a lot of these corporate leaders. And because it doesn't come from some academic theoretical model, but it comes from the real world of sailing ships, braving the storms at night and all of that, the leaders take this very seriously. And I'm telling you, the business world eats this up. Now, sometimes I get to do more than just tell stories, which is good, because having some kind of experiential exercise brings it much more to life. Since we don't have the power of the ship, what more can we do to empower the learning? So here's an experiential package for less is more leadership. This is a mast-raising exercise. Very simple. And we start by teaching everybody to tie a bowline. But we teach the bowline without speaking, because less is more. So we just teach it by demonstrating, having them watch. And the participants always say that they feel more relaxed and more attentive, and the knot seems clearer when we don't load a lot of talk onto it. Now, I, for one, believe that we humans, we talk way too much. This is maybe an odd thing for a speaker to say, but it's really true, and I do a lot of work around the power of speaking less as a leadership skill. We'll be doing some of that this afternoon in the workshop. So we do it by speaking less because less is more. So then they tie a bowline around their waist, they tie a small bowline in the end of the line, they put it over the top of the mast, and then they can raise the mast. And I try to push it over from several directions so that they get the idea of how they have to work together to really hold it up. And then I'll step back and hold up my hand, and they lower the top of the mast into my hand. And I don't move my hand around to catch it. They have to actually get it into my hand. And they do this without speaking. No one's directing them. They're not talking to each other. They're just paying attention to each other enough that they can actually use all of their lines to get that mast in my hand. And after failing a number of times, they succeed. And then we do it from different directions. And then as the finale, we rig up a bosun's chair, and we hoist the CEO up the mast. Now, you notice this mast is quite short. And that's because this allows us to do it in a classroom or a meeting room or a conference room. It allows us to go to where the audience is. So this doesn't have the power of raising a yard on a ship, of course. But packaging it in this way, without speaking, being attentive to that level of detail of how we do the teaching, this brings a tremendous power to the experience. I'll be doing more of this in the afternoon, looking at leadership and attitude management skills, but also how do you package things like this for different audiences. The book, Keep Your People in the Boat, is full of these sail training principles packaged for people who will never go to sea. But the sail trainers here in the room, you all can develop your own set of principles based on the training that you already do on ship. And you can package these to deliver to different audiences in different ways in different places around the world. I know, for example, that some of the ships have crew who live all around the world, and you have them do presentations where they live to groups trying to attract trainees. Well, why not have them do some actual training for corporate groups, and you get paid for it? Because there's a bonus here, too, is that the more we think about packaging the sail training experience in this way, the more we can actually strengthen the crew. The more we articulate the principles behind sail training, the more we can strengthen the delivery of sail training. Because, let's face it, sometimes, not on any of the ships here, I'm sure, I should tread cautiously here, but sometimes one of the obstacles to delivering effective sail training can be sailors. Now, I can say this because I am one. And I remember having conversations with my shipmates about what a great job this would be if we didn't have to drag the trainees with us all the time. And I didn't go to sea because I wanted to be an educator, right? I went to sea because I wanted to sail these magnificent ships and have adventures and have every finger a marlinspike. And I thought that the point of sail training was that the trainees should be like me. But of course it's not. The point of sail training is that the trainees should be themselves, the best version of themselves that they can be. And the truth is that once trainees go to sea with you, most of them will never go to sea again. So as a crew member, I need to be able to say more about what I'm doing than sail training builds confidence. And I need to be able to do more than send people up the mast and hope they find some confidence. Articulating these principles and thinking about the packaging of them can help crew do an even better job of delivering the sail training. Because what is the practice of sail training? What is the best practice? How do we do this really well, beyond just teaching people the ropes? Actually, in the research literature on sail training, there's very little about this. There's a lot about outcomes, but there's almost nothing about how do you do it. But I know that there's a lot of researchers and educators here at the conference for whom this question of what is the practice of sail training is very important. So it's important for the trainers too, obviously. Trainers, educators, researchers, this is a great opportunity for you to find the potential of a point of cooperation here. So I encourage you to seek each other out. Now, the host cities, you can be part of this too, because you can promote this kind of offering to local businesses. Maybe at the next event, you can have a sail training tent set up where crews from the different ships can come and provide this kind of training to corporate groups, but perhaps also to school groups. And partner sponsors cover the cost of the work. But you actually get paid for it, and you can share this profile and this revenue with the ships. This is potentially another point of cooperation. Because I imagine that the next time the ships come to Aarhus or Liverpool or Coruña or wherever it is, that the businesses in those towns are saying months ahead of time, the ships are coming. Let's be sure to sign up for one of those training programs they do. We can't send our people to sea with them. That's too much. But those sailors have a lot to teach us about leadership in the real world. So we'll take 20 of our middle managers. We'll spend half a day with them. It only costs 2,000 or 3,000 euros, which for business training is not much. Let's be sure not to miss this chance. Or when there are business conferences in the host ports, can you arrange for this kind of training to be offered to corporations who pay a fee for it? Or partner with leadership development trainers like myself, and there are a lot of us, to bring the power of the sea experience ashore for leaders who will never go to sea. And those business people that you contact that way, they'll be so impressed with what you do that they'll send their children to sea with you. Now, when I said at the beginning that we could think bigger than the ships, well, maybe what I mean, maybe it's as accurate to say that we can think smaller than the ships. Sail training does have the power to change the world, one trainee at a time. And we can reach a lot more people than we do now and make some more money doing it. So that's the bigger part. But we can do this in small ways by remembering that when it comes to leadership and when it comes to training, less can be more. So thank you very much.
Very many thanks to Crane for that, and could I suggest that we put our hands together one more time to thank him most appropriately. It's fair to say that's got us all thinking, and I'm sure that's the way we'll remain throughout today and tomorrow. That now closes the opening plenary, so please, downstairs for the first coffee break. Enjoy the conference. So any questions, queries, please just see one of the South Training International team. Thank you.
That the next time the ships come to Aarhus or Liverpool or Coruña or wherever it is, that the businesses in those towns are saying months ahead of time, the ships are coming. Let's be sure to sign up for one of those training programs they do. We can't send our people to sea with them. That's too much. But those sailors have a lot to teach us about leadership in the real world. So we'll take 20 of our middle managers. We'll spend half a day with them. It only costs 2,000 or 3,000 euros, which for business training is not much. Let's be sure not to miss this chance. Or when there are business conferences in the host ports, can you arrange for this kind of training to be offered to corporations who pay a fee for it? Or partner with leadership development traders like myself, and there are a lot of us, to bring the power of the sea experience ashore for leaders who will never go to sea. And those business people that you contact that way, they'll be so impressed with what you do that they'll send their children to sea with you. Now, when I said at the beginning that we could think bigger than the ships, well, maybe what I mean, maybe it's as accurate to say that we can think smaller than the ships. Sail training does have the power to change the world, one trainee at a time. And we can reach a lot more people than we do now and make some more money doing it. So that's the bigger part. But we can do this in small ways by remembering that when it comes to leadership and when it comes to training, less can be more. So thank you very much.
Well, very many thanks to Crane for that, and could I suggest that we put our hands together one more time to thank him most appropriately. It's fair to say that's got us all thinking, and I'm sure that's the way we'll remain throughout today and tomorrow. That now closes the opening plenary, so please, downstairs for the first coffee break. Enjoy the conference. So any questions, queries, please just see one of the South Training International team. Thank you.